Good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rocket League eSports Wrap-Up Show. There we go. Let's quiet that down. My name is Shalthis, and this, of course, as I just said like a second ago, is the Rocket League eSports Wrap-Up Show, where we are going to talk about this past week in eSports and all of the ridiculousness which has taken place during this week. As you can see, we have a great amount of news to get to because it has been nothing short of chaotic this past week. There's probably a lot of news on here that are probably a lot of news which has taken place that's not on this broadcast because it's hard to keep up with sometimes. But in any event, before we get into this past week's tournaments, let's talk about some of the major events of this past week that could affect competitive Rocket League. And we'll start with one of the bigger pieces of news. Gibbs from IBP Cosmic announced that he is stepping down as a player from the team and will be representing the team as a coach/manager. So that particular bit of news, obviously very shocking. Cosmic, probably one of the longest term teams that has played with a consistent roster since everything really started with competitive Rocket League. So it is definitely big news. It's not something that I guess is too surprising, so to say, because, you know, we had started hearing rumors and things like that of changes to that roster coming down the line. But this is a little unexpected, you know, and it doesn't surprise me too much that if they were going to make changes to the roster, that Gibbs would still be a part of it. We know that Gibbs, you know, obviously has a really solid mind for this game. You know, regardless of what you think about him as an actual player, you know, it is not really too relevant, but he does have good awareness in the game. He's a big personality in the scene, so not too surprising he's sticking around. But in any event, you know, I'm glad to see that Gibbs is still a part of this, you know, of this team, and will help them kind of continue whatever team they may actually be going forward. I know we're still waiting on the official reveal of what their final roster is going to be. There's a lot of speculation. We did see Kronovi playing with the new team during Mockit, and they did very well for themselves, coming out of the lower bracket, which we'll talk about very soon. The former team Anavia RL, also known as Shoot and Goal, has signed with SNK eSports. I'm going to reveal this news because I'm also part of SNK eSports, so that makes this easy. But, so yeah, the team of Fernandez, Chaussette, Killernod, and Fakey have signed with SNK, and they will be representing SNK eSports, at least going forward. I'm personally very excited about this. They are an incredibly talented team. Had a bit of a rough week this past week, but I know what they're capable of. They had just previously won ESL, one of the top 10 teams in the power rankings of Europe, and certainly a team that I think can continue to grow and improve, and hopefully will participate in a lot more events and continue to get their name out there now that they're represented, you know, by SNK, or at least a part of the organization. So I'm very excited about that, and good to these guys to, you know, get with a team that hopefully will give them the support. I know I'm going to do my part. There's only so much I can do from my end, but you know, I want to give them that support and promotion that they deserve. Other roster news, we're going to keep going down the line here. So, Pashy and Siki were officially released from Crown and Jewels Rocket League, and then Stocky was signed, so he's going to be pairing alongside Killer number 7 and Yeezy, and they will form the brand new Crown and Jewels team. And Pashy and Siki, I believe, have joined forces with Scrubkill, and it looks like they're all unified under the new Mockit eSports EU header. So they'll be representing Mockit on the European side, while Yeezy, Killer, and Stocky will be the brand new Crown and Jewels. So the interesting question here, of course, is, what does this mean? Like, which team inherits Crown and Jewels' position on the power rankings and things like that? And we have to look at the majority rule here. We always look at the primary roster of a team, and wherever the majority of that roster goes is where we basically apply that ranking and continue that ranking. And basically, as it stands right now, the new Mockit eSports EU has that representation of the majority roster. So we'll see how things play out over the next few weeks as these teams establish themselves, get more actual playtime in tournaments, and things like that. So we'll kind of go from there. Now, as for whether or not Stocky is signed, I don't know. I just know he's part of the team. That's all I can say. In what I feel is fairly sad news, but not utterly surprising, both Doomsy and O'Neal have parted ways with Team Rocket in order to pursue more competitive interests in the approach of the RLCS. And I know Doomsy is here, or at least was here. I assume he's still here. But yeah, in any event, both Doomsy and O'Neal parting ways with Team Rocket. I will say, not a hugely surprising decision. I kind of talked about this last night when I was working on this overlay. But Doomsy was always the player on Team Rocket that was the most standout player, so to say. He always kind of stood out as being that player that had, I would say, the most consistent performance. And while there was certainly some inconsistency there, there was definitely most consistency there, generally when they were playing at their highest level and playing most regularly with the most stability. But in any event, I think that Doomsy and both O'Neal, we know what O'Neal is capable of, seeing him play for both Shazoo, seeing the times he would play for Noble. We know what these players are capable of, and hopefully they will find very good homes, and with the chaos of the competitive Rocket League scene, especially in Europe, I wouldn't be too surprised if he winds up in a good place with some good teammates. There are a lot of free agents to choose from, so I think he'll be in good shape. Same with O'Neal, of course. I don't want to just speak about Doomsy here. But yeah, I'm sure they'll both wind up in very good places. If not the same place. Who knows? Time will tell. Finally, the big news today and what this whole countdown in-game was about, Microsoft announced that Xbox and PC will have cross-platform play, and that Rocket League will be one of the first games to support that. Going forward, Rocket League will ultimately be able to support complete cross-play across Xbox, PS4, and PC. So with that means no more separate tournaments, a completely unified competitive scene, and completely unified player base, which I think is always in the best interest. Because as we know, the Xbox scene has been slowly growing. It has a good amount of players, but competitive-wise, not a ton. So if they're exposed to more potential competition, especially the established player base on both PS4 and PC, I think we could see a growing scene with Xbox players, just like we have with PS4. But of course, PC will still be the primary competitive platform going forward. So, your awareness is keen, Mike. Surprise, surprise. But in any event, that is this week's news. A lot of pretty major pieces of information have broken. As you can also see, we're talking about this upcoming week's tournaments. So, scrolling down below, you'll see tournaments for ESL, Mockit, Gfinity, eSports Wall, and also you will see the Titans Coliseum, an event that's being sponsored by Seismic and Utrecht. That's taking place this Sunday. You may also notice that the RL Winter Classic is not on this list. That is because the RL Winter Classic has been postponed to next week. So the Rocket League Winter Classic will take place Sunday, March 27th, starting at noon Eastern, 4 GMT. So make sure you are there to tune in. It will be hosted on the Rocket League Central Twitch channel. It's going to be very exciting. I'm looking forward to it, obviously, since I'm running the damn thing. And it is all for charity. We are raising money for Doctors Without Borders, so, you know, we want to try to make this as successful as possible. So with that all being said, let's get into this past week in competitive Rocket League and talk about some of these major events that have taken place. So, without any further ado, let's get down to business. We're going to kick things off with Gfinity, which took place on Saturday, March 20th. This 3v3 EU Cup featured the new Mockit Sports EU team, operating under the Remember Our Name banner. But Mockit eSports EU, BAM eSport, Holy Pook, Team Ledham. Team Ledham, that's a team that I think we're going to be talking about pretty frequently in the coming weeks, because they are a new Russian team, I guess a fairly new Russian team, that has come onto the scene with a huge impact. Not only placing, as you can see here, in the top 4 of Gfinity, but they also did pretty well in ESL as well. So I think we're going to see a little bit more out of this Team Ledham in the coming weeks. So I'm eager to see how this plays out. What are the rules on spectating ESL games? To answer that, because I've seen this question several times now, the only rules are if the teams are okay with it, then you're in, or if it's an ESL broadcaster, then they have to be allowed in. Anyway, so yeah, Team Ledham, I don't know, they're a new Russian team. I'm not familiar with their players, but they just have come on the scene like crazy. So I'm very excited to see how they play out. But in any event, also Kapow, Wayfast, Steam, Aptitude Alpha, and Perpetual Blackout in the top 8. It would be Mockit, Ledham, Kapow, and Blackout who would make it to the Final 4, but the finals would see Mockit eSports EU and Kapow ultimately ending in a 4-2 for the brand new Mockit eSports team. So, congratulations to them on winning this event, coming out of a, obviously an unfortunate situation with Crown and Jewels that didn't quite go the way they wanted, coming off of their big successful week last week. But, we'll see how it all kind of plays out. But in any event, good on them winning Gfinity this week. Moving on to later that day, Mockit, their tournament. Obviously, this bracket looks a little convoluted, so I'll explain it. The final 8 teams in the winner's bracket were Kings of Ermine, Lickle-Lying Lemons, So You Think You Can Lobdell, Multiple Scoregasms, Sploon Shalthis, thanks, Possible, Snack Cooksell MVP, which was Snasky, Cookseer, and ELMP, and Mockit eSports NA, the regular Mockit team. Now, Possible was the team that obviously had a lot of attention. That was Kronovi, Gambit, and Lachinio, who were playing on that team. So a lot of interest with that particular team. But as you can see, in the round of 8, they were sent down to the lower bracket. Now, keep in mind, Mockit is a double elimination tournament. I only show the winner's bracket on screen here. If you want to see the full bracket, you have to go to their challenge page and view it there. But in any event, going to the Final 4, Kings of Ermine, Multiple Scoregasms, Sploon Shalthis, and Snackcooksell MVP would make it through. But the finals would see the finals of the winner's bracket would see Kings of Ermine and Snackcooksell MVP going into that. Finally, Snackcooksell MVP would actually qualify for the finals because Possible would come up out of the lower bracket and not only win the first best of 5 series, but the second best of 5 series, because under double elimination rules, if you come from a lower bracket, you have to beat the person who won the upper bracket twice. And Possible did that, 3-1 and 3-0, so Team Possible, otherwise Kronovi, Gambit, and Lachinio, would win what I believe was their very first tournament. So, a very interesting result, very exciting result, and good news if that's the roster they want to go with under Cosmic, because proven results here. So despite that first round, being dropped out by Sploon Shalthis, they would still come back out of the lower bracket and take the whole thing in the end. So this could be a very formidable NA squad and a formidable. Wow, man, it's one of these days a very formidable international team as well. So with Mockit settled, we move on to Sunday and ESL EU. The ESL Go For Rocket League Cup number 33 took place. Your final 8 teams would be Mix 1-2-3, Symphony RL, the former RG eSports team, Galactic Lions, Torched, Team Ledham, again, there they'd be, Kia Vikings, Hard-On Colliders, and Boosting Buccaneers. Now, unfortunately, Team Ledham would not make it out of the top 8 this time, but still placing in the top 8 is pretty solid. Moving to the Final 4, Symphony RL and Galactic Lions versus IKEA Vikings and Hard-On Colliders. We would see Hard-On Colliders and Galactic Lions move to the finals in this tournament, but ultimately Hard-On Colliders would win ESL and take this tournament in probably not the most competitive ESL we've seen in a while. Some teams not on this list who normally would be, so just a very interesting tournament. But ultimately, you know, the win would go to Hard-On Colliders, so they would take ESL EU for this week. Moving on to North America, ESL NA, the Plantronics Cup, would see the final 8 teams of No Clue, Heroes of Tomorrow, Back That Pass Up, Goomba Squad, Forsaken, Mockit eSports, 2ARC, and Brace for Impact. Now, as some of you may know, the team underneath 2ARC has parted ways with their sponsor, with 2ARC, but they haven't decided on a new name yet. So this bracket is just going to reflect their name at the time of this tournament, but we will find out what their new name is before next week's event, hopefully before the NA Power Rankings go out. In any event, moving forward to the Final 4, we would see No Clue, which is basically the members of Apollo 11, but I will say that JamesBot and Zane Jackie were actually playing in this tournament. So, and they would play under No Clue and Back That Pass Up, Mockit eSports and 2ARC, but the finals would see Mockit eSports take out No Clue 4-1 and pick up one of their first major tournament wins in some time. So Mockit eSports getting a pretty decent win here in the Plantronics NA Cup. So as some of you may or may not know, the ESL Go For Rocket League NA Cups do not exist anymore. It is now the Plantronics NA Cup, and it actually has a larger prize pool, a $100 prize pool instead of $75. So, you know, ultimately, a much better tournament for the NA folks because they don't have a whole lot to play on the NA side of ESL. It is certainly mostly a EU thing, considering the amount of tournaments that take place on EU, namely that PS Plus tournament. So with ESL coming to an end, we also had the RLC EU Pro Draft, which took place this past Sunday and featured the following teams. So we would see this interesting Pro Draft event where these 8 captains, Pashi, ELMP, Doomsy, Marky Doodah, Cookseer, Vogan, Greasy, and X3MW, would all play as captains and draft together a bunch of very interesting teams, to say the very least. Very interesting teams here. Some teams that I thought looked really good on paper, but ultimately wouldn't go too far. But these are the squads that were put together in the EU Pro Draft. For anybody who's not familiar with what an EU Pro Draft or what a Pro Draft is, basically a roster of 24 players in total are invited to participate. 8 of those players were nominated as captains. Those 8 captains then took turns drafting from the remaining players to form these teams. It did go in order, but ultimately went to a point where X3MW, who was the last choice in the first go-round, would get first choice in the second round. So he basically put together his entire team in one go. And then it would go back up the opposite way. But in any event, this was your final teams. And yeah, Mika Geishi, that is Skyline, for anybody who's not familiar with that. You know, Skyline, formerly of Noble, now of BAM eSports. Very solid player. Very, very, very solid player. But in any event, that was your teams. This was your bracket for the EU Pro Draft. We would see Team Doomsy take out Team Marky Doodah in the first round, 3-1. Team Cookseer would take out Team Vogan. Team ELMP going 3-0 against Team Pashi, taking them out. And then Team Greasy taking out Team X3MW. Moving forward here, Team Cookseer would eliminate Team Doomsy. And in a full 5-game set, Team Greasy would take out Team ELMP. Then we would go to a best-of-7 finals where the tournament would go the distance as Team Cookseer would eliminate Team Greasy in the finals 4-3 to win the EU Pro Draft. And once again, just in case you forgot, Team Cooksier consisted of Scrubkilla and Musketeers, what turned out to be a very offensively sound team. Musketeers, who kind of came into that team as the, I would say, quiet player on that team, the most unknown player on that team, a member of Comrade Gaming, but showed up in a big way. You know, he stood out pretty considerably there, and really made his presence felt. But I will say also, Scrubkilla did look quite outstanding in there, pulling off some pretty big plays. But that is your final bracket, again, for the EU Pro Draft, and that is what has taken place there. So, with that being said, that is what this week in competitive Rocket League looked like. Hopefully that shed some answers. So now is one of my favorite times of the day, where I open up the floor for questions and answers. If you have any questions or answers about the competitive Rocket League scene, the game itself, the power rankings, or whatever the hell else you want to ask me, leave your question in the chat below, and I will answer it to the best of my ability. So, let us do that. The floor is open. What questions do you have about Rocket League, or Rocket League eSports, or whatever? Anything. You know how this goes. I do this every time, so I don't think it's any surprise anymore. I'm just going to move this broadcast thing over. Talk about Team Possible. Okay, I'll talk a little bit about them. I unfortunately didn't get a chance to see them play. That was, unfortunate. But from obviously their performance was pretty solid. From what I've heard, they were just as effective as a lot of people thought they'd be. And perhaps with a little bit more time, they can become a very dominant, completely dominant international team. If that's the roster they keep, and it feels like they're going to go that direction, but I don't know. If that's the roster they keep, though, that could be a very strong, obviously offensive sound team that I feel can also compete very well with EU teams, because they possess the ability to rotate fairly well based off of the way they all play. So I think that could be a strong team, all things considered. What hair product do I use? I don't. You have an answer, but you need me to ask you a question? Well, I don't know what your answer is, so I can't help you. On a scale of Kronovi losing to Mark getting a pizza, I don't understand that scale. I'm kind of excited about Team Possible. It seems like a really strong contender for an NA team against the EU teams that have been dominating the scene for so long. It almost kind of feels like, an NA All-Star team, but I need to see them in action to really get a good read on them. Will I ever be adding the Pulsar Premier League to the wrap-up show? Okay, I obviously was going to... I was going to include the results of this past weekend's Pulsar tournament, and I will be incorporating them into the future of this. I was up super late just getting what you see on the screen right now and all of those other brackets set up, so I didn't really have the time or the mental capacity to create another new bracket. I obviously like Pulsar. I shoutcasted for them this past Saturday. I casted their entire Premier Division tournament. I love those guys, and I will incorporate them into future episodes of this, as well as other stuff. Whatever other major events crop up, I want to try to incorporate into this show in due time. It's just, I wanted to settle on a nice overlay like this that was a little cleaner, a little more professional, didn't have all the SNK branding on it. There's a reason behind that. Hopefully I'll be able to talk about that soon. But, yeah, I wanted to go with something a little bit better in terms of an overlay, and that took a lot of time. And the little tournament scroll you see there, that took not as long as I thought it would. It took more time to just make sure all those little graphics were created, but it was ultimately pretty easy. But yeah, in the Pulsar Premier League, it was fantastic. I had a great time casting it, and the fact that Boots and Cats, the only EU team in that tournament, was up until like 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. I don't know where exactly they are in Europe, and still won it against a double tap team including Classics. I think that says a lot about just how strong this division is, or just how strong the region is for EU. What are Mike's camera settings? I think, didn't he reveal them on his stream at one point and somebody screen grabbed them? Info on the next season of the RLC Pro League. Don't have any info on that. Will the RLCS be all open qualifier? It will have an open qualifier, we know that. There will be 2 open qualifiers that take place. I don't know what the restrictions are. Obviously, we'll probably find out in 11 days when registration opens, but we'll see. Is Cosmic going to be number 2 in power rankings because VQ has disbanded? Well, I mean, I don't even know what Cosmic's roster is right now, so I don't know what their ranking position is going to be right now. As it stands right now, Team Possible is going to have a pretty comfortable spot, but I have no idea. I shoutcasted the PPL Premier Division Tournament Finals, yes. Low 5 overrated, whatever. Alright, looking for questions. Thank you for the host, X3. Much appreciated. Thank you, Nasty. Yeah, I took off all the tickers and everything, but I will say the Kevins are still intact. So, you know, if there are any donations that come in, the animated Kevins are still present and accounted for. So, we at least got that. And I think I still have the $1 Million Man music, so there's that too. Alright, hey, you know, I answered just about everything. I try at least. Do I think the roster changes are going to be in a positive manner of Rocket League or negative? I think it's ultimately going to be positive, because what we're seeing right now is the evolution of competitive Rocket League. We are seeing players who want to turn this into a job, starting to take the necessary steps to compete at a higher level. These are players that want big tournament wins, big sponsors, big money, so they need to do what's necessary from a business perspective. That's why you're seeing so many roster changes right now. So the players who maybe were only participating on a casual basis, you know, they're going to be out, and they're not going to be able to play because you're going to need to dedicate much more time to this in order to be successful. Thoughts on the new NA Mockit roster? The new Mockit NA roster. I mean, they're doing pretty well so far. I think they're doing quite well. They, you know, I think a little more time under their belt just to make sure they're gelling well and everything like that. But I mean, so far they're doing pretty good. Anything happening at Orange Creamsicle? They keep rotating out their other player, like their third. They're trying to find a new third. I know that there was a team that... Hold on. Let me find this here. Because... I know Quinn played in Mockit as So You Think You Can Lobdell. But I don't remember who his teammates were. So... I think I have it here somewhere. Because it was saved to a... Everything got a lag out on me. God damn it. Anyway. Ah, there you go. Thank you, X3. Yes. It was Quinn Lobdell, Sad Jr., and Pluto who played as So You Think You Can Lobdell. There's potential for that to be a new team, if all things are considered. So, there you go. I mean, there's that. But, you know, could be interesting. But, in any event... Okay, I think I've caught up on all the questions. So, if anybody has any questions of their own that I haven't gotten to, now's the time. Now is a good time to ask them if you have them. Otherwise, we may wrap up a little early. Thanks, not mine. My soundtrack right now consists entirely of songs that I have pulled from the YouTube free music thing because I didn't want my VODs to have any copyright strikes on them. And because the Rocket League soundtrack now gets copyright struck out the ass, I don't want it on my thing. And hopefully they can fix that at some point. But any info on We Them Girls? Nothing new. They're still their usual selves. They are going to be playing in the RL Winter Classic next Sunday. Well, not this upcoming Sunday, but the Sunday after, the 27th. Hopefully we'll see some actual play out of them this weekend, though, in other tournaments, and we can finally get some more consistent experience with them. What about Noble? Noble, I believe, is going to be finalizing their roster soon, so we should see the new Noble in action hopefully this weekend. If not by next weekend, I'd imagine. Any idea what Pluto's doing? I know he wants to find a new team. He did play for So You Think You Can Lobdell in Mockit this past weekend. So, hopefully he'll find a team that he's happy with and can play a little more consistently with in the coming days, or in the coming weeks. At least before RLCS. Thoughts on the big ESL tourney that's coming up? I assume you mean the PlayStation Plus tournament? I think it's great. I think the more major tournaments, or at least major-ish tournaments, the better. They're doing qualifiers right now. Those are still open, and any chance to win a decent amount of money playing Rocket League is good for anybody in the competitive scene. It's too bad it's isolated to Europe, but hell, go for it. What are my thoughts on Insolences? I haven't seen a whole lot from him. I remember when he subbed for Untethered a little bit. I mean, he's a pretty solid player, but I haven't seen him with any consistency, like regularly, so it's hard for me to form a good opinion on him. What do I think of Cosmic roster with Crow, Lachinio, and Gambit and Sad as sub? I don't think, if that's their main roster, I don't think Sad's going to hang around as a sub. I just don't think so. If he wants to play competitively, he's going to find a new team. That whole situation with We Dem Girls, I don't think is going to be a problem anymore. I think they've now got their roster settled. There was some things happening. What happened with Marky Duda? That thing is long done. There's nothing happening with Flipside. They are still Flipside, still together, for now. If Mike Rules is still here, I'm sure he'll have his own thoughts on it, but yeah, that is all settled. Where does free agent Doomsy land? I'm not going to read that whole thing. It's a good question. I don't know. I feel like, I don't think Doomsy's just going to land on a brand new team. Oh, wow, Ryan, thank you so much for the subscription. 6 months in a row. Killing it. Killing it, my friend. Thank you so much. Welcome to the Shal Pals. Yeah, as for Doomsy, I feel like he's probably going to build a new team from scratch with a couple other players. Like, I don't see him just joining a team, necessarily. So I could see that happening. Yeah, the Maestro situation was, kind of... I don't know if it was Maestro or whoever it was, but I mean, just... I don't know. It is too bad. Everything. But in any event, why am I scrolling way the hell up on that? I need that. Anywho. Yeah, man, I mean, look at all the news that I got on here. I didn't expect to have this much news this week. But with everything that's taken place, it is not easy. Yes, Flipside is still together. And they are still Flipside. They're normal 3. Am I going to shave? I keep going back and forth on it. I might get rid of this side stuff. We'll see. I do need to clean up a little bit. It's starting to grow out, but anyway. I don't know about him saying he wouldn't go back to Flipside, but he did, or never left, or whatever. If I had to make an EU team out of players only from the same country, which would be the strongest? Scotland would be pretty strong. Germany would be pretty strong. I don't know all the countries that everybody's from, so that makes it hard. I know, like, you know, EU and NA, but specific countries I don't exactly know. How much money does Mockit have? As much as Lucky wants to put into it, I suppose. He's the one funding it, so his call. Finally, Scotland is good at something. Oh, Shogun. Lucky's basically the guy who bankrolls Mockit and, you know, their respective esports teams. So I don't even think Lachinio is confirmed. I don't think anybody's confirmed right now. And that's the problem, is like we have a lot of speculation. We obviously saw the roster that played as possible in Mockit, but nothing's been like formally or officially announced. Yeah, we know Crown and Jewels has sponsored a new team. It's Yeezy, Killer, and Stocky. So Stocky, formerly of Noble, has joined up with Crown and the other two remaining Crown and Jewels members to form their new trio. Whereas Pashy, Scrub, and Sicky are now being sponsored by Mockit eSports for their EU team. So. So that's where things sit right now, and this is all official because it was announced by their Twitter and everything like that. None of this is speculation. The way I try to do things, like any of the news that I'm going to talk about or include on the sidebar, I always want to make it news that's been like announced or confirmed or you know, talked about by the players and everything like that. So. Yeah, Scrub, Pashy, and Sicky are Mockit EU. The manager is a twat. Well, hey Jake, welcome. What do I plan to do to bring SNK to the next level? Well, I mean, I've got to talk to the team. I got to get together, and I got to figure out what they want out of competitive Rocket League. You know, I obviously want them to, if they're open to it, I want them to play in as much as possible, especially in preparation for the RLCS. Because I feel very strongly that if they can get some good momentum behind them going into the qualifiers, they could very well, you know, they could easily make it into the next round of the qualifiers, maybe even make it through to the LAN if the performance is on point. It's not going to be easy and there's going to be a big fight, but the fact that they're such a stable team right now is a big advantage. So I want to take advantage of that and have them try to start getting as much play in as possible. But, you know, a lot of it's going to be about just getting some consistent play, seeing what their results start to look like as they're getting more play under their belt, and then just kind of building it from there. And, you know, really, you know, figuring out what needs to change as we get more results. But I got to talk with them first, figure out everything they want or need to do, how they want to approach things, and kind of go from there. Yeah, I remember you, Jake, of course. But yeah, I feel very strongly that SNK could be one of those top 4 EU teams. I genuinely do. Like, this is a team that has a lot of potential, a lot of capability, and some really strong talent. So if we can just get some good consistency and work out any little kinks, I think they could do it. I really hope they play in RLCS. That's going to be. I really want them to be a part of RLCS and show off in there for sure. That's a good question, Demoody. And yes, the team of Pashi, Siki, and Scrub will inherit the old Crown and Jewels position because they are the majority of the starting roster. Yeezy and Killer are, well, I believe Yeezy and Killer were subs at the time of the changes to the roster. But even at best, Yeezy was the only starter for that team, whereas Killer has always been in a substitution role. So therefore, there's at best one of 3. Obviously, Stocky brand new, so. Can I give any info on the next season of RLC Pro League? There is no info to give, so no. I don't have anything to tell you, sorry. Yeah, the new Crown and Jewels, because they're basically a brand new team, will have to essentially start like any new team. They can very well make a good position in their first power ranking, depending on how they play. Why has Doomsy become a free agent? Because he's looking for a more competitive team, plain and simple. You know, he wants to play competitively, he wants to play in the RLCS, and he wants to do well, and I think he needs a team that can support that. And it's justified. It's not a diss against Team Rocket necessarily. It's just the fact of the matter, you know. They went from being a competitive team to being a more casual team, but Doomsy wants to go back to being a competitive player and getting into RLCS and doing really well there. So he's going to need a team around him that can support the quality of play that he brings. What is my role as the coach of SNK? Like, what are my responsibilities? It's something I need to work with the team on. You know, my goal is to facilitate their ability to improve as best as I can. You know, I want to be there to review the games they've played, give them any feedback I can, not tell them what to do. That's not what I do as a coach. It's to give them my feedback, and they as players can then incorporate that into, you know, improving it. They can take it for all it's worth, or they can, you know, decide to do something different. But my goal is to work with them to make them the best European team in Rocket League. You know, that's my goal. I want to make them competitive, like really competitive, top 4 EU, RLCS, LAN qualifying team. That's what I want. Half-Life 3 confirmed? Never. That game is never coming out. Do I reckon Doomsy can get into the RLCS? If he has a good team around him, absolutely. He's a very good player, and he has a little bit of inconsistency, but otherwise he's a really solid player, and he's always been the standout player on Team Rocket. You know, back in the day when Fisha was still around, they obviously were a little bit of a stronger team because they had an advantage over the rest of the competitive scene. But then Fisha took all that time off, and his skill is still a little bit behind the rest of the scene, whereas Doomsy, I think, is still, you know, has improved and is still a very formidable striker. And if he has the support around him that can give him the necessary backing, then he can be a part of a great team, and very well could be. I definitely think he can make it into the RLCS, depending on the team he has. Don't know if it'll be Final Four, but definitely out of the regular Open qualifier. Well, O'Neal has left Team Rocket as well. O'Neal has stepped down to find another team. I don't expect him to play with Fisho and Cole. I think he wants players who are a little more consistent at a higher level, just like Doomsy, justifiably. I don't know where he's going to wind up either. But again, he is also a very strong playmaker and and scorer, so he deserves to be on a team that can help support that. Can I remove Gibbs from the news list? I'm sorry, Shogun. It's nothing to be sad about. It's something to be happy about. Gibbs is taking his career to the next level. He's doing something he loves. He's still a part of Cosmic, and he's going to help them become the best Cosmic they can be. He will continue to be that backbone of IBP Cosmic. How many teams are going to be able to qualify for RLCS? I have no idea. I don't know what the qualifier tournament format's going to be like. I mean, there's going to be 2 qualifier events, culminating in a top 8, 4 from EU, 4 from NA, that then go to the LAN finals. But I have no idea what the format is. We'll probably not know until the 25th, when everything breaks, but... What do I think the best possible team will be made out of all the free agents? God, I don't know. I'm not even sure who's still technically a free agent. There's so much crazy shit going on, and players keep getting signed, and teams keep breaking up and changing rosters. I can't keep up with it. I'm just kind of waiting for the dust to settle right now, basically. I think Fisha is a very talented player and very skilled, but having a high rank on the ladder doesn't equate to being a high-rank pro player necessarily. I mean, he needs a good team around him too. I think if he has a good team, he could very well still be competitive if he wants to be. I just don't know if he has the time or the ability to do it long-term. Mostly the time. I don't know if he has the time to do it long-term. He has the ability, but the time is the thing. Will I show bias towards them if I'm shoutcasting a game that SMK is playing in? Absolutely not. In fact, I'll probably be more critical of them. Because it's in my best interest for them to perform exceptionally well. And if they do, I'll be very happy. But as a shoutcaster, obviously my intent is to just present the event as accurately as possible. And if they're not doing well, I'm certainly not going to say they are when they're not. You know, I want them to succeed, but I'm not going to blow smoke up their ass. Do I think EU or NA will win RLCS? As it stands right now, EU. There's no updates on how many teams are in each round of RLCS. There's no news. We probably won't know anything until at least the 25th, if not longer. Yeah, I can't make a team out of free agents. It's just too insane. Fisha's a little bit behind because he took so much time off, so his skill level is still high because it's kind of around where it's at when he left. So he's still a very strong player because he was always a very strong player. But the rest of the competitive scene has evolved so much further that he is a little bit behind. He's not bad by any means. I've never said that, but he is a little bit behind. He'll probably agree with me. I don't even know if he's still here, but that's my thought. You know, and I think if he wants to continue to play competitively, he very well could. Do I think Lachinio, Kronovi, and Gambit would be a good team? Well, they were during Mockit. As Team Possible, they did really well. I think as long as they can continue to play, get a little more consistency under their belt, work with Gibbs to iron out any issues, then yeah, I think they can be, you know, very high level. When will you ever enter a competitive tourney? I don't know. Maybe at some point. How's my French? My French is non-existent. Fortunately, they all speak English, so I can communicate them without needing to speak French. I try to avoid like any slang or anything like that, and just, you know, be a little consistent with how I talk to them. But yeah. Think I should enter a tournament with Mike and Marky so I can get the ESL tag? I would like that. I'd be down to get a fancy new tag. But yeah, I don't know. I would need to then play in both ESL and a monthly final to do that. Play and effectively win an ESL monthly final. Or no, play and effectively win in regular ESL, then play, you know, in a monthly final. What do I think the best ever team would be who hasn't played together yet? Okay, I gotta address this a little bit. I am not of the camp that feels that you can just throw together 3 all-star players and just have a great team. I don't feel that that's the case. You need a really well-rounded team, and I honestly don't know who's not played together, but you need a really well-rounded team of offense, defense, playmaking, everything like that, and players who can support those roles very well. You know, you look at a team like Gambit, Lacinio, and Kronovi, and my first instinct was, wow, that's a really heavy offensive team. But I do know that Kronovi and Gambit do have pretty strong defensive capabilities, even if Lacinio doesn't. That's still okay. So they have a bit of the depth that they need. So I can't really tell you who the best team would be out of 3 random players, because I have no idea. I don't know how they'll click together or how well they'll play. Like, I can say on paper, you know, there are teams that look good, that I think have the depth that they need, but then it turns out they either don't or don't have the time to really gel, like we saw in the Pro League. So, I don't know. It's a bit weird. What happened with DeBoer since Swarm? DeBoer went on to play for Manteca FC. I think he also did some admin stuff for ESL EU. Hey, Mystic, how you doing? Alright. Would I say that Snow is the best player in England? I don't know all the players in England. I think it's my problem. Ooh, I don't know all the UK players. He might be. I haven't seen him play in a while. But yeah, I don't know all of the UK players. Or all the England players, I should say. I know UK is not just England. Alright, try to get caught up. When will the NA Pro Draft be? There was an NA Pro Draft. It took place several months ago before the Pro League. That's why we did the EU one, because we already did an NA Pro Draft. I don't know if we're ever going to do another Pro Draft. I'm sure we'd like to, but I can't say for sure, you know, if we're going to or not. I mean, out of those players, I could probably say that, yeah. You know, definitely you and Doomsy have got to be the 2 top players out of that list. Musketeer is pretty strong, but I only saw him really play in the Pro Draft. I don't see a lot of Comrade games, so it's hard to say. But from what I've seen, yeah, I mean, Snow and Doomsy, definitely right up there. When will there be Korean pro tournaments for Rocket League? I don't know. Once they have a competitive scene to support it. Will Rocket Royale ever come back? I don't know. That'd be nice. I'd like to bring back Rocket Royale. I loved Rocket Royale. That was great fun. But I have no idea. I don't know what we're going to be doing next from an RLC standpoint. I know we want to do something on a more consistent basis, but I don't know what we're going to do yet. Think RLCS will ban Yemen by proxy because of that? I don't know. Not my call. I doubt it, honestly. I don't think they're going to care. I should stream more. I stream pretty frequently. What do you mean I should stream more? I stream pretty frequently. I stream at least 3 times a week, if not more than that, when I'm just playing or hanging out. I just stream at weird hours. But I think I stream pretty well. So I don't know. I stream as much as I can. I got other things I have to do. What can I say? I can't just stream all the time. RLCS stands for Rocket League Championship Series. And it is the brand new Psyonix and Twitch sponsored tournament that begins with open registration on March 25th of this year. It is a 3-month event that spans 2 qualifiers and an 8-team LAN event final with a $75,000 total prize pool across all 3 of those events. And hopefully it'll be rotating every 3 months and continue to grow and get bigger. When will be the next tournament I'll be casting? As far as I know right now, the next tournament I'm casting is the Rocket League Winter Classic on March 27th. I have no other plans to cast anything in the coming future, in the near future. What will you say is the most important factor in making a competitive Rocket League team? The individual skill of the team or how the players get as a team? Absolutely 100% how the players function as a team. A team that gels and functions well as a team and has strong teamwork, and they also obviously have to have that individual skill, but if they have that skill and work together well as a team, they can outperform an all-star team any day of the week. So I will say that absolutely. Teamwork, most important. Out of all the teams, what are made, who do you think is the favorites for winning the $75,000 prize pool? If Flipside participates in RLCS under their current roster, they probably stand to be the team that the most likely to do that. Yeah, I see that, Kappa. Of course I want to cast RLCS. Psyonix knows I want to cast RLCS. I think even Twitch knows I want to cast RLCS. I don't think there's anybody who doesn't know that I want to cast RLCS. They just haven't asked yet. So, if they do, I'll be here waiting. But, I mean, I'm not saying that three individual all-stars will, not work or not be a good team, because they will. But on a long-term basis against long-standing teams, they're going to have a harder time. I'm going to tell you that much for sure. I don't get anything on the prize pools. At least on my end. I don't know how other coaches get their deals, but no, I don't take any share of the prize pool. I wouldn't want to either. That's that's not for me. That's for them. They earned that. Yeah, I know, a lot of shoutcasters. Anybody who does casting on a consistent basis, I'm sure wants to cast RLCS. But I've been at this for the last 7+ months, dedicating my time to Rocket League. So obviously, I want to get in on being a caster for the RLCS because that's all I've done for the last several months is cast for Rocket League. So I'm hoping that has a little bit of influence over their decision if they even decide to bring in anybody new. So. What's the F3 roster? Same as it's always been. Marky Dude on Mike Rules and Cookseer97. That's your roster. Always has been, always will be. Well, always has been. Well, I know that Psyonix will probably bring in Golden Boy. Well, Twitch will use Golden Boy because he's, got that experience. But they might want to bring in somebody, from the existing community who can provide that bit of higher level analysis, at least from general scene knowledge and knows a lot of that, so I'm hoping. Will I ever cast something else? I cast a lot of stuff. So, I don't know. I'm a freelance caster, so I cast a bunch of stuff. There are some things, coming down the line that I want to talk about, or that I want to cast, or, that I have been asked to cast, that haven't been officially announced yet. Smaller stuff, but, Yeah, but no, he's still around. Yeah, Pulsar. So, I mean that can happen, because, again, a team that has a lot of individual skill might not be clicking completely entirely as a team. So has a hard time. Because that's the thing with RLCS too. Like Regan said, I don't know what their format's going to be. I don't know how much they want shoutcasted or anything like that. You know, I don't know how many of those games are actually going to be shoutcast, especially during the online qualifiers. You know, I just know that I want to be a part of it in some way. I especially want to get to the LAN event if they'll have me. I don't have favorite players. Said it before, I'll say it again. I don't make favorites in this. I don't make favorites because I know, like, I know so many players and I know so many teams, and I'm such a part of the competitive scene that I would never pick favorites at all. I can tell you who I think are the stronger players or stronger teams, and it's all, like, subjective from that perspective, but it's never a favorite thing. Hey, Greasy, Sarubi, how you doing? You guys came in at the great time. We're coming to the end of the show. That's okay. You're still here. We're still doing open Q&A, of course, so if anybody has any questions, you can just post them in the chat, and I'll be addressing them. They should have a lot of people streaming qualifiers and then choose the best ones for RLCS, just like with the teams. Yeah, why not? A competitive casting tournament. You know I'm going to do my part. I've been at this for a while. I got experience. What about the best player? My opinion, the best player in Rocket League still is, and I think, is Marky Duda. I feel he's the strongest overall, all-around player in terms of all the critical components. But I've always said that. Izale, how you doing? Who's the most improved? Oh, that's a good question. I've never been asked that one before. Most improved player. I would say... That's a really tricky question. You know, one player that I can think of off the top of my head, who I've seen both at a lower point and a higher point, is Prime Thunder from NA. When I first saw Prime Thunder playing on Apollo 11 many, many months ago, he stood out, very strong player, but did have some poor decision making and wasn't quite the formidable player that he would become. And he was off the team for a while, then came back during the RLC Pro League, and when he subbed in for Apollo 11 during their final few games, he just looked outstanding. Like, he was making great decisions, great plays, he looked like an all-star. So, he has stood out to me as being one of the more improved players, just that I can think of as somebody who has seen him at both points. You know, as he started and where he's wound up. So, that's definitely one of the players I would mention very highly, is Prime Thunder, for sure. Well, that's okay, Shogun. You'll be eliminated pretty quickly, so if you want to cast RLCS, you'll have the time. Being an asshole, I'm sorry. Alright. Do I think any player has gone from potentially the best to quite bad? I don't know about quite bad. I will say that Fisho went from being like one of the most high-level players in the game to being not bad by any stretch, but not at that level anymore, at least not yet. And it obviously has to do with the fact that he stopped playing for, like, I don't know, what, 7 months or so. So it's no surprise. That's one of the biggest examples I can give. And that's not a diss to Fisho. He just maintained the same level of skill as the rest of the scene evolved and got bigger and more skilled. What players would you say fly under the radar? I feel Musketeers did. Hopefully people start noticing him after the RLC Pro League. Skyline / Mikageshi has always kind of been under the radar, despite the fact that I feel he's one of the stronger players out there. And I've tried my best to really deliver that point, so hopefully he's gotten more exposure because of that, but he doesn't seem to get the attention that I think he deserves sometimes. There's a lot of players that are really good that don't get the attention they deserve. because they're not like the big flashy scorers and playmakers, or they don't have the big personalities and things like that, but they're still just really strong players. That could be the case. We could see a big army of South Korean players emerge onto the scene and just dominate, take it over, run this shit like StarCraft. What is my opinion on Pashy? I think Pashy's an extremely solid player. Very good striking capabilities, very good decision making. I was surprised when he got let go from Crown and Jewels, but it's no surprise that he's immediately on a brand new team that's sponsored. You know, that's just what I expect from Pashy. So, yeah, I think he's a fantastic player. He's consistently been a part of top-tier teams for a reason. Do I think the Asian community will ever catch to Rocket League, or is it more of a westernized sport? I think this game is less about it being more of a soccer/football game, and more about it being a competitive game. I could see an Asian competitive scene start to emerge, but I don't know if it's going to ever reach the level of North America or Europe. It's mostly the time that they can dedicate to it, Dark. Like, Korean players will spend countless hours playing their respective games. They start very young, they dedicate constant time to it at levels that, you know, a lot of Western players just don't and can't or won't, you know? And that matters a lot. So they train a lot and they train well. So that's why they tend to, you know, be so formidable. Am I coming to DreamHack? I don't think so. It's in Texas, right? I mean, I have no way to get to Texas in May. I won't be able to do that. I'd like to. You know, I'd like to hang out, but unfortunately I'm not going to be able to do that. How good do you think Kronovi is? Kronovi is fantastic. I mean, it's pretty obvious. He's one of the best players in the game. What do I think of Mockit NA? I think they're a good combination of players who probably need a little more time just to get, you know, all the kinks ironed out, but I think they're a strong team, and they could do very well for themselves in NA. Absolutely. Well, yeah, I mean, sometimes getting the attention, you know, as a scene grows, it's going to draw the attention from players in other countries. I think if Rocket League gets bigger, we're going to see much more players from around the world want to participate because, hell, it's a competitive game and there's money involved. So, I think that's what can happen. Yeah, Team Possible is an interesting beast. That's all I can say. I am in the Northeast, Scrub. I am technically in Rhode Island. I don't say technically. I'm in Rhode Island. But yeah, I'm in the Northeast. Did I hear that Microsoft opened up cross-platform play? I mean, I have it right there. It's like right down there on my news thing on the screen. So yes, I have heard. Thank you. Yeah, I'm in Rhode Island right now. I'm here. Do you now? I love in Rhode Island too, but I also live in it. Yeah, I've been here for a while now. Do I think South America will be included in the next tournament? I am more interested, honestly, in that, and I hope that OCE, that Oceania, gets included in the next round of the RLCS. There is a super strong competitive scene in Oceania that has gone overlooked for far too long. I think those guys put in a ton of work, a ton of time, and they put on some amazing competitive Rocket League. Like, it is beautiful stuff to watch. And the casters are awesome too. So I hope they make it in to the next round of the RLCS. So, hopefully. The way the crossplay is going to work is it's going to start as Xbox and PC. But as the crossplay functionality expands, it will ultimately be all platforms. Who do I think would win? Best NA versus Best EU? Best EU. At least right now. Because in practically every measurable metric, EU has beaten NA in the last several weeks/months. The one EU team in Pulsar Premier League beat all these other NA teams. The EU teams made it to the finals of the RLC Pro League. The RLC Pro League All-Star game was won by EU. There's your best EU and best NA. I mean, there's no other way I can compare it. It's not like even an objective thing. It's just a purely statistical thing that, you know, what else do you say? It's got to be EU. For now. What would I like to see the Antarctica Rocket League eSport community grow? Probably better heaters so that their computers stop freezing. Ha! Boom! Got it. Anyway. I will be doing everything in my power to make it to the RLCS LAN. Like, I need to be there. If I'm not hosting it or part of the event's festivities, I will do everything and move heaven and earth to be there. I have to. I have to. Like, it means so much for me to need to be there. We should do a dual cast dual stream when you get home next week. Maybe so. Kings are going to be Pashy, Killer, and Sicky and Mockit Saturday. Well, that team no longer exists, so I mean, it's a good win. It's definitely a good win for Kings of Urban, of course. And I know that they did have the win over them a couple weeks ago, but I can't rank, you know, EU against NA necessarily. There's some value to it, of course. It's more influence. It's more value that's better for the team that wins versus punishing the team that loses. But it's all independent. But see, once you start subbing out players, that changes the dynamic quite a bit, because now you've got players who don't typically play together, and that throws off that team chemistry. So it makes it a little harder to accurately judge how well these teams are. But alright, folks, one final call for questions, and then I'm going to wrap things up here. I have other things I need to get to. So post your questions in the chat right now if you want them answered, and I will address them, and then I'm taking care. I'm heading out of here. But you know how this goes. So last and final call for questions right now. Let's do it. Flipside is still the same Flipside they've always been. The event on March 20th is the Titans Coliseum. It is an auction draft event that is hosted by Seismic and Utrecht. I assume it's going to be held at twitch.tv/seismicwhite. It seems like a very cool event. Like, it's going to start at noon Eastern. It's featuring players from Europe and North America. They're going to be a part of this draft event. And the winner gets, I think, like $1,000, or it's at least $1,000 prize pool. So I think it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be very exciting. I'm looking forward to it. How does IBP roster look? All we've seen so far is Team Possible, which was Cronovi, Lichinio, and Gambit. But we don't know if that's the official final roster yet. They have not officially announced what their final roster is. That's just the most recent combination we've seen. What is happening this Sunday? That's like this upcoming Sunday on RLC? I don't know if we have anything going on RLC. I know that the week after, on the 27th, is going to be the Rocket League Winter Classic, because that's my tournament, and we're hosting it on the RLC channel. So, yes, Utrecht is a wonderful man. He took some time away got his own stuff going on, but I have nothing but love for anything he does. So I will certainly be tuning in to the Titans Coliseum on Sunday. For sure. What are my camera settings? It's a webcam. This is a webcam. Thank you for the love from Lithuania and Ireland. It's so international. Love it. Do I dream casting RLCS? Yes. That is obviously my end goal. I want to shoutcast RLCS more than anything I can say. For sure. What happened to SK Gaming? Well, I know that X3MW has left SK, so right now the only remaining players are Dedu and, oh my god. Why can't I remember the third player on SK? Jazer. Jeez, wow. Sorry. Dedu and Jazer. I don't know if they're going to find a new third, or if they're just waiting for their deal to run out and they're going to do their own thing. I have no idea what's going on with SK. Who will be streaming the tournament by Utrecht? Probably Seismic. It's probably going to be streamed on Seismic's channel, which is twitch.tv/SeismicWhite. So. Chizer? No, Chaser. I know how to pronounce it. Not everybody else does. But am I going to stream more of my own gameplay? Yes, probably. Have I gotten better? Would I like to cast the LAN with Gibbs as your pro analyst? Absolutely. That'd be awesome. If I could throw to a casting desk with Gibbs on it, that'd be in a heartbeat. You know I'd do that. How do I spell that? It's Jazer. Jhzer. That's how he spells his name. His in-game name, obviously. I think his proper name is like Joni or something like that, as he said. But yeah, Jazer. Jhzer. Jazer. Hey, Prime. How you doing? I was actually just talking about you earlier. Do I think a coaching role suits Gibbs? I think it does, absolutely. I think any kind of role where he can take a more analytical approach to the game, whether it's on a casting desk or, you know, in a coaching role or a managerial role, I think that works out really well for him. Oh, who's streaming the tournament? Well, I mean, it's gonna be Seismic. Like, I think he's the one who's hosting this event, so I assume he's gonna be running the whole thing and probably has some support from the folks at, I think he has some support from some of the admins and stuff at RLC. But, yeah, I mean, it's just his event. It's his own personal thing that he's done with Utrecht to just put on something cool. Given the drama regarding sponsors lately, is there a good resource for players to help educate or protect themselves in such situations? Okay, that's a really good question. So I'm going to take a second to talk about that. Here's the fact of that situation. At this point in competitive Rocket League, top players are going to start to be approached by a lot of different people and a lot of different companies or organizations that want to sign them to deals. If you are not legally educated enough, and I'm not saying educated, just legally educated enough, to fully read and understand the depth of the contract you're signing, it is in your best interest to get an attorney of some kind to read that deal. If you can't afford an attorney, or an agent, or something like that, whose only interest is to protect you, then you need to be very careful about anything you sign. Like, really careful. Because some organizations and companies are going to lock down what you can and can't do if you're not really very careful about combing through your contract. And it's also in your best interest to get an agent or something like that who has your interest in mind, because you may not have the experience in being a negotiator. You may not know what the best deal is that you can get. You might know what you're worth to yourself, but what if you can get more money? What if you can get a better deal because somebody who's experienced in the industry knows what your value truly is? So, if you're one of those high-end players, if you're getting a lot of different deals or a lot of different offers, don't just look for something that seems to be good and sign it. Consult with an agent, consult with an attorney, consult with somebody whose best interest is you, and have them review your deals. Say, this is what I've got on the table. What looks good? What looks bad? What can we offer and counter-offer to try to get a better situation? You know, that's what you really need to do to protect yourself, especially if you want to take your career in competitive Rocket League to the next level. So, I don't know if there's any... I wouldn't say there's any online resources that I could point somebody to, because it's all subjective based off of the deal you get and somebody whose sole interest is protecting you. So, you know, that's something that you really need to be careful with, and that I highly recommend consulting an attorney on, so that you're legally protected and that you're also getting the best deal. That's why agents are really good. An agency will always have your best interest in mind. They'll want to make sure you're getting the best deal so that they get the best deal, and that, you know, you're also legally protected. Anyway, is there anything in progress from Psionic's side which includes showing nationality from players, which would give them the option to make a nation ranking, etc.? I don't know. I know there's been a lot of conversation about wanting to do something like a World Cup of Rocket League, where players from specific countries have to play with, you know, players from their country. But I don't know if they'll do that in-game at all. Yeah, it's just twitch.tv/seismicwhite. I think that was just typed into the chat. Alright, so I answered that question. Yeah, Seismic is an extremely talented, creative guy. The videos and the graphics he can design are unreal. This guy's amazing. I agree, D-Pants. I mean, it's unfortunate, but, you know, that's the situation where, you know, so many people don't... They just sign a deal because it looks good, and they don't have their own interests in mind. And they don't know what to look out for. And that's why you need an attorney or an agent to help guide you if you don't have that experience. Sole interest? What? Is this a Fred Perry polo? I doubt it. If Fred Perry is like an important name, it's probably not. I've had this shirt for a long time, and I don't think it's anything special. Alright, folks. Well, I don't have any further questions, so I'm going to wrap things up. Thank you all for being a part of this. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked the new overlay. I'm probably going to use this overlay for the power ranking show, too. I really like it. I'll obviously adjust it to taking that into account, but I like it. I think it looks good. It's clean. It's nice. It's got animation on it. Gotta love animation. Yeah, I think it's cool. But thank you all so much. Had a great time. Thank you for all the questions, the follows, the subscription. Always so cool. So cool. So cool. So cool. Wonderful. But yes, thank you so much. Why did I open that? It's not what I wanted to open. I wanted to get my... That's the one. Just to make sure I didn't miss anything. I just want to check. Lots of follows. The new subscription, I know I saw that. Cool. Yeah, thank you all. Again, you are wonderful people. Okay. Power ranking streams always take place at the same time. EU, Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. So 7 p.m. GMT. NA, Friday at 8 Eastern. So, those are the usual times. If that changes for any reason, just pay attention to my Twitter, twitter.com/Shalthis, and just check that. I should probably put my social media on here, shouldn't I? Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll put a little bar at the bottom here that has all my social media and links and stuff on it. Anyway, cool beans. Thank you all. I had a great time. You're all wonderful people. Thanks for hanging out and talking to me and entertaining me for so long. I will talk to you amazingly wonderful people again next time. So take care. Have a fantastic day. See you around.